What happens when an entitled former royal walks onto a daytime talk show expecting the red carpet treatment, only to meet a host who refuses to play along? Well, buckle up, because what unfolded on Joy Behar's show was nothing short of explosive. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly why Meghan Markle stormed off set and why the producers had to step in to escort her out. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping confrontation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really went down. Trust me, you're going to need to hear every single word of this exchange too. Believe it, the tension was palpable from the moment Meghan Markle walked onto the set. Joy Behar, known for her no-nonsense approach and quick wit, was sitting behind her desk with that familiar skeptical expression she reserves for guests she's not quite buying into. The audience could sense something was different about this interview from the very beginning. "So Meghan," Joy began, barely looking up from her notes, "you're here to talk about your latest venture, but I have to ask, don't you think the public is getting a little tired of hearing about your struggles when there are people out there dealing with real problems?" Meghan's smile faltered for just a split second before she composed herself, but anyone watching closely could see the flash of irritation in her eyes. "Joy, I think that's a rather unfair characterization. My platform has always been about lifting others up and creating positive change in the world, right?" Joy said, leaning back in her chair with that signature smirk. "But isn't it interesting how all this positive change seems to revolve around you and your brand? I mean, let's be honest. Here, every charity you attach yourself to somehow ends up in the headlines with your name front and center." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the softball interview Meghan had clearly been expecting. Her media training kicked in as she tried to deflect with a practiced laugh. "I think you're misunderstanding my intentions. Joy, when you have a platform, you have a responsibility to use it for good. That's all I've ever tried to do." "Oh, come on," Joy interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "Responsibility? You had the ultimate platform when you were part of the royal family, and what did you do with it? You complained about how hard your life was while living in palaces. Do you see why some people might find that a little tone deaf?" Meghan's composure was starting to crack. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair a little tighter, and her voice took on that edge that anyone who had followed her media appearances would recognize. That's an incredibly reductive way to look at a very complex situation, Joy. You have no idea what it was like to be trapped in an institution that refused to protect me or my family. Trapped? Joy let out a short laugh that echoed through the studio. "Meghan, you chose to marry into that family. Nobody forced you. And when things got tough, you had options that 99% of the world could only dream of. Private jets, multiple homes, financial security most people can't even imagine. So forgive me if I'm not reaching for the tissues here." The energy in the room was electric now. Camera operators were adjusting their angles, sensing they were capturing something special. Meghan's media persona was slipping away, revealing something much more raw underneath. "You know what, Joy? I came here thinking we could have an intelligent conversation about the work I'm doing, but it's clear you've already made up your mind about who you think I am." "Oh, I know exactly who you are," Joy shot back without missing a beat. "You're someone who's made a career out of playing the victim while living a life of incredible privilege. And now you want sympathy for the consequences of your own choices." Meghan's eyes flashed dangerously. "That's completely unfair, and you know it. I've faced racism, harassment, and threats that you couldn't even imagine. My mental health suffered to the point where I had thoughts of self-harm, and you're sitting here making jokes about it." "Nobody's making jokes about mental health, Meghan. But let's talk about harassment for a minute. Isn't it interesting how everyone who disagrees with you or questions your narrative suddenly becomes a racist or a bully? Your own father, your sister-in-law, staff members who worked with you, they all become the villains in your story. Don't you see a pattern there?" The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Meghan's face flushed red, and for a moment, it looked like she might actually get up and leave right then and there. "How dare you?" she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You don't know anything about my family situation or what I've been through. You're just another talk show host looking for ratings by tearing down a woman who's trying to make a difference." Joy leaned forward, her own voice getting sharper. "And you're just another celebrity who thinks being famous means being above criticism. Newsflash, Meghan, when you put yourself in the public eye and make millions off your personal story, People are going to ask tough questions. That's how this works. The studio audience was completely silent now, watching this verbal sparring match unfold with fascination and horror. Production assistants were whispering frantically into their headsets, clearly unsure whether to intervene or let the train wreck continue. Meghan stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor, with a harsh sound that echoed through the studio. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. This interview is over. But Joy wasn't done. Oh, so now you're going to storm off because someone finally called you out? This is exactly what I'm talking about, Meghan. The moment someone doesn't bow down and treat you like royalty, you throw a tantrum and run away. Those words hit Meghan like a slap across the face. She froze halfway between sitting and standing, her entire body trembling with barely contained rage. The polished, media-trained facade she had carefully constructed over the years was crumbling in real time, and everyone in that studio could see it happening. Excuse me. Meghan's voice was ice-cold now, each word deliberate and sharp. You think this is a tantrum? You think standing up for myself against your blatant disrespect is throwing a fit? Joy didn't flinch. If anything, she seemed energized by Meghan's reaction. I think you're proving my point beautifully. The moment someone treats you like a regular person instead of putting you on a pedestal, you can't handle it. Regular person? Meghan let out a bitter laugh that sounded nothing like her usual carefully crafted chuckle. Joy, you've spent the last 10 minutes attacking my character, questioning my motives, and dismissing my experiences. That's not treating someone like a regular person. That's being deliberately cruel. I'm being honest. Joy fired back, her own voice rising to match Meghan's intensity. Something you might want to try sometime. Every interview you do, every appearance you make, every statement you release, it's all so carefully calculated. Where's the real Meghan? Because this victim act is getting old. The words seemed to unlock something dangerous in Meghan. Her carefully maintained composure shattered completely, and what emerged was raw, unfiltered anger. Victim act? You want to see the real me, Joy? Fine. The real me is tired of people like you who think they know everything about my life based on tabloid headlines and gossip. The real me is exhausted from having to justify my existence to people who have never walked in my shoes for even a single day. And there it is, Joy said, pointing at Meghan with obvious satisfaction. The real you. Angry, entitled, and convinced that everyone else is the problem. Do you hear yourself right now? You're literally proving every criticism that's ever been made about you. Meghan's hands were shaking now. Whether from anger or humiliation, it was impossible to tell. You know what your problem is, Joy? You're jealous. You're a bitter old woman who never achieved anything close to what I have. So you get your kicks tearing down people who are actually making a difference in the world. The studio went dead silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Joy's expression shifted from amused antagonism to something much colder and more dangerous. Bitter old woman. Joy's voice was quietly menacing now. Let me tell you something, princess. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I've interviewed presidents, celebrities, world leaders, and I've never, not once, had someone show such complete disrespect for this show and this audience. Disrespect. Meghan's voice cracked slightly. You invited me here under false pretenses just to humiliate me on television. And you want to talk about disrespect? I invited you here to answer some basic questions about your public statements and actions. The fact that you can't handle that without having a meltdown says everything about your character. Meghan took a step closer to Joy's desk, her finger pointing accusingly. My character? You don't know the first thing about my character. You see what the media wants you to see, you believe what serves your narrative, and you attack what threatens your worldview. What threatens my worldview? Joy said, standing up now to meet Meghan's energy, is people who use their privilege to play victim while real victims suffer in silence. What threatens my worldview is watching someone who had every advantage in life complain about how hard things were while people are struggling to put food on the table. Every advantage. Meghan's voice was getting higher, more strained. You think being racially abused by the British press was an advantage? You think having my mental health destroyed was a privilege? You think watching my husband's family turn against us was some kind of gift? I think, Joy said, her voice cutting through Meghan's hysteria like a knife, that you made choices that had consequences. And instead of owning those consequences, you've spent years blaming everyone else. Your husband's family, the media, the institution, even your own family. When does the buck stop with you, Meghan? That question seemed to hit something deep inside Meghan. For a moment, she looked genuinely hurt, vulnerable in a way that felt real for the first time in the entire interview. But the vulnerability quickly hardened back into anger. The buck stops with me? I'm the one who's been fighting for years to protect my family, to build something meaningful, to use my voice for good. What have you done, Joy? What's your legacy going to be? That you spent your twilight years attacking a woman who was trying to make the world better? Joy laughed, a harsh sound that filled the studio. My legacy is 30 years of honest journalism and holding people accountable. Your legacy is going to be a cautionary tale about what happens when someone gets too much attention too fast and can't handle the responsibility that comes with it. Meghan's face went white, then red, then white again. She looked around the studio as if suddenly remembering where she was, that cameras were rolling, that this entire exchange was being recorded for broadcast. The realization seemed to hit her like a physical blow. Turn the cameras off, she said suddenly, her voice breaking slightly. Turn them off right now. Oh no, Joy said, settling back into her chair with obvious satisfaction. This is live television, sweetheart. Every word you've said, every accusation you've made, every time you've shown your true colors, it's all going out to millions of people right now. The blood drained from Meghan's face completely. Live? You told my team this was being taped for later broadcast. I told your team we were recording an interview. I never said when it would air. That was an assumption on your part, just like assuming you'd get softball questions and endless sympathy. Meghan looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route or someone to save her from this nightmare. But the production crew just stared back at her, professional and detached. This was their job, and they were going to do it regardless of how uncomfortable the situation became. You ambushed me, Meghan whispered, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely broken rather than angry. You deliberately set me up to fail. Joy's expression didn't soften even slightly at Meghan's obvious distress. If anything, she seemed to sense weakness and moved in for the kill. I didn't set you up to fail, Meghan. You did that all by yourself. All I did was ask you direct questions about your public statements and behavior. The fact that you couldn't handle basic accountability without having a complete breakdown on live television, well, that's on you. Meghan's breathing was becoming rapid and shallow. She looked like a trapped animal, scanning the studio for any way out of this disaster. I want to speak to my publicist. I want to speak to my team right now. Your team is watching from the green room just like everyone else, Joy said calmly. They're seeing exactly what our viewers are seeing. A woman who built her entire brand on being composed and relatable, having a very public meltdown because someone finally refused to enable her victim complex. Stop calling it a victim complex, Meghan screamed, her voice echoing through the studio. Several audience members visibly jumped at the outburst. You have no idea what I've been through, what my family has endured. You sit in your comfortable studio judging people while contributing nothing meaningful to society. Joy's eyebrows shot up. Contributing nothing meaningful? Meghan, I've been informing the public and holding powerful people accountable for decades. What exactly have you contributed besides drama and divisiveness? What concrete change have you actually made in the world? The question seemed to short-circuit something in Meghan's brain. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, then opened it again. For the first time in the entire interview, she seemed genuinely at a loss for words. I've raised awareness about important issues. I've used my platform to highlight causes that matter. Raising awareness, Joy repeated mockingly. The last refuge of celebrities who want credit for caring without actually doing anything. What specific, measurable impact have you had on any of these causes you claim to champion? Meghan's face went through a series of expressions, confusion, anger, desperation, before settling on something that looked like pure hatred. You know what, Joy? You're a miserable person. You're clearly threatened by successful women, especially women of color, and you're using your platform to tear them down instead of building them up. And there's the race card, Joy said with obvious disgust. Right on schedule. When you can't defend your actions or your character, just accuse everyone of racism. It's pathetic, Meghan, and it's insulting to people who actually face real discrimination. Real discrimination? Meghan's voice cracked with emotion. I faced death threats, Joy. My children have been threatened. We had to leave an entire country because of the hatred directed at us. You left because you couldn't handle being held to the same standards as everyone else in that family. Joy shot back. You wanted all the benefits of being royal without any of the responsibilities or scrutiny. And when that didn't work out, you burned every bridge on your way out the door. Meghan was visibly shaking now, tears of rage streaming down her face. Her carefully applied makeup was starting to run, and her usually perfect hair was disheveled from running her hands through it in frustration. I'm done with this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm leaving. Of course you are, Joy said with satisfaction. Just like you left the royal family, just like you'll leave whatever your next venture is when people start asking tough questions. Running away is what you do best. Meghan whirled around to face Joy one final time, her face a mask of pure fury. You're going to regret this, Joy. My lawyers will be in touch. You've crossed a line today that you can't uncross. Joy laughed out loud. Legal threats now? How very on brand for you, Meghan. Sue everyone who doesn't kiss your feet and tell you how wonderful you are. Good luck with that. This interview is over, Meghan declared, though she had no authority to make that decision. Turn off the cameras. The interview is over when I say it's over, Joy replied firmly. This is my show, not yours. And right now, you're giving our viewers exactly what they tuned in to see. The real Meghan Markle without the PR team and the carefully crafted image. Meghan looked around desperately at the production crew. Someone turn off these cameras right now. This is harassment. But the crew just stood there, professional and unmoved. They had their jobs to do, and unless their director told them to stop rolling, they were going to keep filming. Nobody's harassing you, Meghan, Joy said calmly. You agreed to come on this show. You agreed to answer questions. The fact that you don't like the questions doesn't make this harassment. I was lied to about the format and the tone of this interview, Meghan said, her voice becoming increasingly desperate. This was supposed to be a friendly conversation about my work. Your work? Joy repeated. You mean your work criticizing your husband's family? Your work playing victim in every interview? Your work monetizing your royal connections while simultaneously attacking the institution that gave you those connections? That work. Meghan let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. I can't. I won't do this anymore. Where's security? I want security to escort me out of here right now. Security works for the studio, not for you, Joy informed her. But if you want to leave, nobody's stopping you. The door is right there. Of course, everyone will see you storming off like a petulant child, but that seems to be your signature move anyway. Meghan looked toward the exit, then back at Joy, then at the cameras that were still rolling, capturing every moment of her humiliation. She seemed torn between her desire to escape and her awareness that leaving would be admitting defeat. This isn't over, she said finally, her voice hoarse from shouting. People will see this for what it really is, a hit job designed to destroy me. People will see exactly what happened here today, Joy replied evenly. They'll see someone who couldn't handle basic questions about her public behavior without having a complete meltdown. They'll draw their own conclusions about your character based on what you've shown them. Meghan took one last look around the studio, at the audience members who were staring at her with a mixture of fascination and pity, at the cameras that had captured every unflattering moment, at Joy who was sitting calmly behind her desk with the satisfied expression of someone who had just proven her point beyond any doubt. Without another word, Meghan turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. But she only made it a few steps before she turned back one final time. You're a disgrace to journalism, Joy, and everyone will know it after today. Joy's final response followed Meghan all the way to the door. The only disgrace here is someone who had every opportunity in the world and chose to waste it on playing victim and settling scores. Goodbye, Meghan. Good luck with whatever your next reinvention looks like. The studio door slammed shut behind Meghan with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire building. Joy sat back in her chair and looked directly into the camera with a slight smile. Well, folks, I think that tells us everything we need to know. When someone can't handle honest questions about their public behavior, when they resort to personal attacks and legal threats instead of defending their actions, what does that tell you about their character? The audience sat in stunned silence, still processing what they had just witnessed. Joy's producers were already calculating the ratings bonanza this interview would generate, while somewhere behind the scenes, Meghan's crisis management team was probably having emergency meetings about damage control, but the damage was already done. Every word, every accusation, every moment of Meghan's complete loss of composure had been broadcast live to millions of viewers. There would be no editing, no second chances, no opportunity to control the narrative. So what do you think? Was Joy Behar right to push back so hard against Meghan's victim narrative, or did she cross the line into cruel territory? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more explosive celebrity confrontations that you won't see anywhere else.